But joining us now, Elissa Johnson, Criminal Justice Reform with FWD.US. Elissa, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Gerard.
So I read the report that your organization produced about the state of Mississippi as it pertains to incarceration rates and just how what appears to be excess prison population, mainly brought on by long sentencing, is actually harming our economy, or certainly there could be opportunities to boost our economy, maybe if we implemented some of these reforms that your organization advocates for. Did I present that correctly? And please talk about that.
Absolutely, Gerard. And yes, you did. I think what we're talking about in this report is really an opportunity for expansion of the workforce. We know that small businesses are talking about a workforce shortage, and how do we fix that? And so we know that incarceration is one of the most expensive and least effective ways to advance public safety. And so what we're suggesting here is that there's opportunities to build on the success Mississippi has had.
Yeah. So what policies are you looking for specifically? What would you, and this would have to come from our legislature, what do you want to see the legislature pass to reform just some of our prison sentences and just overall corrections policies?
And I would say, Gerard, it's kind of a two-part, and I think that we mentioned in the report, because there's a whole section on the steps that have already been taken. And so in 2021, the legislature passed parole reform. That was an important step to give people an opportunity to demonstrate rehabilitation, to go home, rejoin the workforce. And so what we're looking at here is opportunities to build on that success. Whether it's shortening sentences for some offenses. As example, Gerard, in Mississippi, people are sentenced for drug possession 34% longer than the national average. So is there an opportunity to reduce those sentences in order to put people back to work, make sure they have the treatment they need, and I know that's contributing to the economy? Yeah.
And that's a common comparison that is presented statistically, is that the state of Mississippi has an overly high rate of incarceration relative to the rest of the country, maybe the highest, if I'm not mistaken, on a per capita basis. And that's typically pointed to as needing some reform, as just evidence that reforms are needed. And then, of course, there's the cost associated with incarceration. It's quite expensive as well. And then I think the other points are when people are put away to prison and they spend a long period of time there, even for nonviolent offenses, when they're finally released, they've just fallen so far behind as being able to go out and land meaningful, productive work.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that, I think we've been looking at the fact that people who have been incarcerated can be just as good of employees. There was a national survey that was done of business leaders and HR professionals, and the over 80% in both groups found that people who have criminal convictions who have been incarcerated are just as good, if not better, employees. And so there is an opportunity. You have most people that are incarcerated are coming home.
Yeah.
And employment is a way to ensure that we are reducing recidivism and continuing to prioritize public safety, which is the thing we all want.
The other concern, I guess, I've had, Elissa, around this issue is that when we lock people up for these drug crimes that where there's no violence committed, there's no theft involved, really just maybe it's just simple possession or something that is fairly innocuous and really only affects the person. We lock them up for an extended period of time, but we really don't effectively address the core problem, which is addiction to drugs.
Absolutely. And that's what I think we're trying to say in this report, is that there's an opportunity to continue to help support people, give meaningful second chances, making sure that we're addressing mental health and substance abuse, and also making sure that people are able to have the supports they need to get back to work and rejoin the workforce. We see Mississippi's low labor force participation rate as a real hindrance to the current businesses that are working to thrive and also continuing to attract new companies and businesses to the state.
Yeah, and then we have the obstacle of licensing. This is something that is a bit of an albatross around Mississippi's neck, is that we have this expansive licensing bureaucracy. And in many cases, those licenses are not granted to people that have some sort of conviction of a crime on their record. And so that keeps them out of the employment world. What do you think about that?
Absolutely, and there's been some progress on that in the past few years that we talk about in
There
the
have.
report, of being able to look at that on a case by case basis. But you're exactly right; those occupational licenses mean that people that have gotten training sometimes while they were incarcerated or beforehand can't return to the jobs where they have skills. And they're jobs where we need people, whether it's welding or construction or barber, cosmetology. There's a whole range of fields in which we could welcome people back to the workforce in our communities, and they could be making a living to take care of their families.
Yeah, and something else that I saw in the report that was, I must admit, Elissa, was a bit shocking was the number of Mississippians that have a crime on their record. 29% of adults. Is that correct?
That's right. And I think, when we talk about this issue, we really do think of it as something that impacts more people than you think, right? I think your surprise might be the way a lot of people will feel. But to say that there's a lot of stigma around it, and what we really are looking at to say this is an issue that impacts us all, right? It impacts the people in our communities that we go to church with, that we go to school with. And so kind of improving opportunities and prioritizing public safety helps all of us. This isn't an issue that just impacts a few people. It's over 600,000 people in the state.
Yeah, it's shocking in my view that number, 660,000, have either a misdemeanor or felony conviction on their criminal record. Now, I would share with you, Elissa, that a lot of folks have the concern, anytime you talk about criminal justice reform, the first thing that comes to their mind is what they're seeing on their television screens all the time and in the news media and some of the deep blue cities and states where criminals are just able to commit crimes with impunity. I saw this weekend that there's a store in New York City that has gone to just locking everything up in these glass containers, the plastic containers, clear plastic containers that require a worker of the store to unlock them so a person can buy them. They're even locking up Spam, $4 Spam. And that's because you can't do anything about the crime. The criminals know they can steal whatever the heck they want, and they're not going to be punished for it. So what do you tell people about the nuance here between meaningful criminal justice reform and making sure that people who commit crimes pay the price for it as a deterrent, if nothing else?
No, and I think that's a valid question. Absolutely, that's on the top of people's minds because we all want to feel safe in our communities. And so I think what we look at here is the data, and to say that 37 states that have reduced their imprisonment rates have seen crime drop 3 times as fast as those that didn't or saw an increase in imprisonment. And also some of the low-level theft crimes that you mentioned, not that they're not important for accountability, but also a lot of those are quality of life crimes in terms of people that when we experience some of the economic instability, they, again, just are looking for ways. And so how do we address the root causes? How do we ensure people know their access to resources related to food and housing, what's more educational training that we can make sure people have in their community to hopefully prevent crime, right? That public safety is helped by hopefully making sure that we don't even have people entering the system.
Yeah, I think the fear is that to some extent, to your point, we're rationalizing it, we're justifying it, we're sanctioning it, and that's problematic for a lot of people. And so I think it's important that here in the state of Mississippi, we make that distinction that that's really not the plan, that's not the intention, but rather I think it's more to address a lot of these drug crimes.
Absolutely. And I think what we're saying here is that there's ways to have accountability, but also to not incarcerate and use a strategy that doesn't make us safer. And by
Makes sense.
doing and balancing those things, we can absolutely have a stronger workforce and economy, and continue to have more people home and with their families.
Appreciate you coming on, Elissa, and talking about it. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Coming right back, folks, in the Element Wealth studio. Stay with us.